I got a message yesterday that really moved me. A friend of mine was having a conversation over social media with one of my former students, a student who's now a sophomore in college. And I had this young man as a sophomore in high school, so 4 years ago. And he mentioned to my friend, he said that Mr. Bergman really made a huge impact on my life. And when you hear words like that, that it makes what we do matter. It is so good to make a difference and to know that, that's that validation, that third party validation that, sometimes we don't get. We don't see the results of the work that we do as teachers for many years to come. I had another experience this past week. A friend of mine is considering going into teaching, and I said, "Come hang out with me for the day." And as he was walking around the campus with me, and as he sat with my students and interacted with my students, he was surprised. He thought maybe he would go into teaching college, and I said, "You ought to just come visit me for a day at my high school." And I saw something change in him over the course of the day. And when he was leaving, I said something to the effect that, "Dude, this would be a commitment. You have to commit to these kids." To basically, it's going to sound weird and syrupy, but to love on them. Not, you still got to teach them, right? I am all about standards in teaching, and I do. My kids succeed at high levels, but it's really about committing to these kids that you're going to be there and you're going to be their mentor. So, welcome to the Reach Every Student podcast. I'm your host, John Bergman, and I am in a reflective mood, right? I'm recording this in the middle of May, and I'm not quite ready to say goodbye to my students. And I've been just thinking about this past school year. It's been quite a journey. And if you've been following along in the podcast, I think hopefully that you also have been thinking about just reflecting on the year. Parts of the way school works is sometimes you do have to reflect on the year. I had to do some reflections as I filled out my teacher evaluations. So one of our processes at our school, maybe the same as yours, is that I reflect on what the growth that I've had. I had to make like a goal at the beginning of the year, and I then have to respond to it, and it's interaction between me and the administration. It's a very good exercise for me. And I think the key thing that, well, let me just walk you through. So, reflections of John from the school year. I started the year, particularly my goal, by the way, was I want to really enmesh AI into particularly my physics classroom. I'd done pretty good in my geology classroom, but I hadn't in my physics classroom. But then everything took a turn, right? Because I began to rethink AI, and I started out with this. Started out, if you recall, the letter to my students about AI, where I warned them that AI could stupefy them. That was a big revelation to them. It could degrade their intelligence, but at the same time, that they're living in one of the most exciting times in human history. We're going through the fourth industrial revolution, that AI is as big as electricity. Most people are thinking now it is going to be that big of a transformative event for the history of the world. And they are at that cusp in that very interesting time. And that letter I shared with my students, and my students really responded. So it's something that we did day 4. I don't know, very early in the school year, we had a conversation around that letter. That eventually led me, interesting enough, I had a chance I was invited. It was really cool. I was invited to go speak, or not speak, but to a consortium of college professors, STEM college professors at the Rockefeller Center, where I sat down with, oh, there were 12 of us or something like that. And I was the only high school guy, right? They were all these university professors, engineering professors, coding professors, or computer science professors, nuclear engineering professors, mechanical engineering professors from all over the country, and then John. And we sat down, and we eventually came up with another letter that we wrote to students that was more broad. Mine was much more personal to my students. And then we wrote one that was broader. If you want to, I'll put that link to that in the show notes. And that has been well received around the country. And basically, it was the similar gist: is that we're excited for AI, but we also want to caution you with how to use AI. But I was just deeply still struggling with AI in my classroom. I was continuing to use digital tools for my kids, and I was increasingly becoming uncomfortable with students offloading their intelligence to these devices. And I just got increasingly concerned about this. I was making changes. And then what really happened is over the course of, I think it was about October or November when I said, I need to really rethink how to really teach in the age of AI. And I feel like for those, if you go back and listen to those episodes, you'll see my thinking really starting to evolve. And it was like, what do we need to do? And interestingly enough, what I did is I opened up Gemini, right? And I said, Gemini, brainstorm with me. So I'm talking to this AI bot and trying to say, how can we teach in the age of AI based on these letters I've written, based on all this other body of work that I have, is how would this look and how could we create a classroom that preserves productive struggle for our students? And so I feel like I kind of went into a cave and disappeared. I still recorded podcasts, but it was all kind of this in this evolutionary perspective. And out of that, I work also with friends and also like my beautiful bride, my wife of many years. I remember it's like I've got this idea and these are the parts. This is and what do we call it? We had all kinds of names for it. And she said we need to call it the mastery flip. And so husbands, listen to your wives. I married up big time, and my wife is amazing. And she said, "Yeah, that's a much better name." And so we developed the mastery flip model with the AI engines, the analog roots, and then the human checks, the mastery vivas. And then I came up with the framework. But here's the weird thing, right? I wasn't following my own advice. I said, all right, I got to figure out how to do this literally in my own classroom. And once this came out, some interesting things happened. Tech and Learning picked up and asked me some questions, and they wrote an article about it. And since then, I've had contacts from people all over the world who are interested in the Mastery Flip model. I'm going to be speaking in October of next school year, I guess, in Argentina. I actually leave for Brazil right after school out, just in a few weeks, where I'll be speaking about the Mastery Flip. So lots of opportunities to talk about this, and it's resonating with people. But again, let's just truth be told, I have not completely embraced this myself, right? Because one thing that's hard to do, teachers, you know this. You've been teaching a certain way for that particular school year, and the kids have gotten used to a certain way, and now you say, all right, we're going to switch over to this model. And it doesn't always work out so well. They resist the change. But fourth quarter, right now, fourth quarter was almost over. That's crazy, man. That's crazy. I said we're moving in this direction, and so I moved to much more analog. So we had this online tool that we used to assess kids, or they would put their answers in, and I abandoned it. I said no, I want all the answers on paper, and in all my classes. And man, it's been awesome. This quarter has gone well. Now, there's been resistance from some students like, wait, I just want to look this up on the internet. And I'll say, no, I don't want you to do that. And just in the last few days, because I've moved to the Mastery Flip model and the analog roots, in my geology class, I want them to be looking at paper books. And so I went to the head of the science department. There's a little bit of money left over. Amazing. That never happens. And I said, can I buy some old used textbooks? And even though my students buy online textbooks, I had them buy the textbooks. And the first textbook, here it is right here, arrived, usetextbook.com or something like that. And the students can now use the textbook to answer the questions on the very last lessons of the year. But that's okay because more are arrived. I just got an email that more are in my inbox or in the mailroom. And so I'm excited to have those available for next school year. And so, guys, this is going to work. And truth be told, I'm still a bit haunted. Let's just say this. When I was talking to Justin Reich at MIT about the Mastery Flip, so I asked him, I'm developing a course on this. So if you're interested in this course, it is halfway done, let's say. I'm going to have a course released hopefully this summer soon on how to do the Mastery Flip model. And as Justin Reich said this, I said, Justin, here's the model. What do you think? And he said, John, you don't even know this works. You don't have any evidence. And I said, good point. You're right. But he said, you're doing the right thing because nobody knows how to teach in the age of AI. And so the only way we're going to know is if people try stuff and then test it out. And I'm arrogant enough, or confident enough, probably is a better word. I'm confident enough that I know this works because I've seen it work. And it's also based on good, sound uh, pedagogy. It's not like these are like untried things. Oral exams have been around a long time. I mean, like Socrates, Jesus' time, right? This has been something that's been around forever, and it's been very, very well documented that it works. But I'm trying to respond to the age of AI and how do we do this? And so this has been a lot of things that have hit me over the course of the year. And as I was writing my reflection, I talk about reflection for my evaluation. I said, I've gone through quite a process this year, right? At first, I was like, I just want to get AI enmeshed in my physics class. And I said, my whole mind changed and how to do this. And if I have some encouragement for you, and maybe Mastery Flip isn't going to work, all right? It may not be the answer. I think it's an answer, at least. But you, teacher, have to figure this out. Like Justin said, nobody knows how to do this. And the only people who can really figure this out is not expert guy who's on the circuit, doing the speeches. And I'm sort of that, I guess. But it's going to be actual like classroom teachers like you and like me who are in the trenches and who are just trying stuff out. So if there's anything I would encourage you to do is be the experimenter. Try something new. Maybe the mastery flip model with your tweaks. I don't know what that's going to look like in your classroom, but it's going to make a difference as we together, all y'all, all us all we all. Is that a word? I'm in Texas, and all y'all, that's a thing. Is that we've got to figure this out as a collective, because if we don't, I'm afraid. I'm afraid for the future minds of our kids. And that's really what it all comes down to is nobody's going to solve this for you or for me. There's no person riding in on a horse to save you. It's us who have to make this happen, right? And as I reflect back on the year, what's made a difference, what's been most meaningful is those interactions I've had with the kids, sitting across from them as they are wrestling with a concept. In my physics classes, I have a final project that they have to do. And in the final project, what they have to do is they have to build a working motor. And it just requires like wires, batteries, and magnets. It's to build a very simple motor and to explain the concept and just to watch their eyes light up as they get it to actually work. Now, some of these students, I teach there's two levels of physics at our school. We've got honors and then what we would call on level. And watching some of my like super smart kids who are like really book smart sometimes, but like maybe not like tactily can make things, for them to like, I can't figure this out. I said, well, figure it out. Bye. But when they succeed, the joy on their face. And then even sometimes they struggle with explaining why it's happening. By the way, it's really cool. Electrons go through the wire turns into a magnet, it fights the magnet. It's such a cool thing. Just to understand how things work is super. I just dig that stuff. And the kids have too, and they catch it. And I remember talking to one kid who he surprised me. Here's this interesting young man. He struggled in the class, and it came to this electricity unit, which we do the last quarter, right? And he's come alive. He's like moved from the lower tier of the class from a performance perspective to the top. And he was so proud. He made a motor. I've never seen anybody do this that lasted for 30 minutes, that kept spinning. Usually people can get him to learn for, I say you got to get it to like work for 30 seconds. But this young man got it to work for 30 minutes and he was so proud of it. So the battery just died. And then it was so cool. And I told him, I said, have you thought about becoming an electrical engineer? Dude, you are. And I'm not joking about this. This is a true deal. I think I'm trying to cast a vision for him. And these are the moments, right, that you have with your students where you're casting a vision for their life. Again, another highlight of the year has been these vision videos that I talked about in the last couple of podcasts. And I've even got more responses. I just got a response from a parent a couple of days ago and just saying, this was the single most amazing thing we've seen in our kids, our son's education ever. It's like, whoa, wow. And I'll say this again, kids need to be seen. And you have a unique opportunity. Please hear me carefully. You have created so much relational cachet in their lives. Don't waste it at this moment in time. It's about time for you to say goodbye to your students, which to me is a grief process, which I'll talk about next week. But celebrate these times with your kids. And yeah. So, a bit of a rambling podcast here as I just share my heart and as I reflect on the school year. And I want to talk eventually about summer plans and how we as teachers can recharge and what my plans are. I'll share those in the weeks to come. But I want to just encourage you to take some time, number one, to reflect on the year, the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? My year, there were failures. There were days I said, I'm so frustrated, I'm just going to pull my hair out. And it's like, kind of like when I was talking to my friend, I said, this is a glorious and frustrating and amazing and sometimes depressing job. But you get to make a difference. You get to make a difference in the lives of students. And I know some of you are so discouraged and it's like, I just want to give up. Can I say this? We need you. Don't give up. And I'm not saying there isn't a time for you to say, I can't do this anymore. And some people need to make that decision. So don't hear me saying nobody should say that. But a lot of you just need that encouragement to say, you can do this. You can make it. When my friend was visiting me, my students, there was a rumor going around that all of a sudden I said, wait, stop this. They said, this guy's coming to replace Mr. Bergmann. Mr. Bergmann's leaving next year. And I had to say, stop. I am not leaving next year. I promise I will be back, Lord willing. I will be here. I have signed my contract. There's no way I'm not coming back. Okay. So hear me carefully. So it felt good because they were like worried, but they just saw this guy shadowing me thinking, oh no, he's going to become the new physics teacher or whatever. And no, that's not the case. And it also showed that they cared, that they valued me, and they get worried. And kids, I don't know, rumors happen. That's the thing. So thanks for listening. And again, like I say, reflect on your year, take some time, jot some things down, think through, again, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I think you're going to just be surprised really at the difference that you're making. Again, sometimes you don't see it until 4 years later, or sometimes you never see it and know the impact that you made. Like when this young man vicariously was talking to my friend in Kansas, weird connection, and all of a sudden he's saying, that man changed my life. And I would have, if you would have just told that to a random person, I would have never heard that story. But the fact that it was a friend of mine from my Colorado days who now lives in Kansas, a very weird connection, it was like super cool. So thanks for listening. If you like this, push the subscribe button, you the game. And remember to go out and reach every student. And if you want to listen to all the episodes, reacheverystudent.com. Hey, John Bergmann out.